Welcome. Today we're talking with Karla Trumbauer. She's the Chief Information Officer at First Commonwealth Federal Credit Union and an adjunct professor at Lehigh University. Karla has over 20 years experience in information systems. Karla, welcome, and thank you for joining us at Credit Union Digest.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. All right, well, let's get started. So Karla, as you know, Credit Union Digest's recent survey of credit union presidents and CEOs reported that cybersecurity was the #1 priority. Karla, what has First Commonwealth focused on regarding cybersecurity?
Well, unfortunately, with something as multifaceted as cybersecurity and cybercrime, it's difficult to have the luxury of focusing in just one area. At First Commonwealth, our approach to cybersecurity is multi-layered to try and mitigate the risk as much as possible through kind of a three-pronged approach. We focus on awareness and education, prevention and protection, and then monitoring and response. So looking through that lens, some of the key things we've done, specifically in the prevention and protection area, we've spent a lot of time working to improve our perimeter protection and deepening that through multiple layers. We've enhanced our email security controls. We've implemented improved firewalls. We've implemented intrusion detection and prevention systems, a lot of things that really kind of protect that surface layer. During the pandemic, when a lot of us went remote, we were faced with a much larger number of endpoints to protect. So we also made some improvements to our VPN security to deepen the layers of protection there. And then in the awareness and education space, we've also focused on ramping up education and communication with staff around cybersecurity risks through monthly phishing campaigns. We've given them additional online training courses, and we regularly do ad hoc communications throughout the year based on current events and current risks that are coming up in the news. There's definitely a much higher awareness and sensitivity now, not only around protecting the information within our environment, but also protecting our members' information that's housed by our vendors. So we need to make sure that we keep cybersecurity and everyone in the company's responsibility around it front and center. So that kind of then leads us into the monitoring and response area. We do regular threat assessments, vendor reviews, vulnerability tests to make sure that we're monitoring any potential new exposures we have in that space. We also recently completely revamped our incident response plan to ensure that it's thorough, it's up to date, it reflects current best practices. Because as most people will tell you, it's not a matter of, if you're a victim of a cybersecurity incident, but unfortunately when.
Karla, thank you. Your answer on cybersecurity is really good. As you say, it's multifaceted with the cybersecurity issue. So thank you for that great overview of that. So one of the things you mentioned was the remote work. So as First Commonwealth shifted to remote work and now perhaps is more in a hybrid work model, how did you modify your cybersecurity strategy and practices to deal with this situation?
Sure. So like I mentioned before, when the pandemic hit and the majority of our workforce had to quickly shift to be remote, that dramatically broadened our potential surface area of exposure for attacks or vulnerabilities. Because this was kind of a new model for us, we did have some people that worked remotely, but it was not the standard by far. One of the things we did early on in the pandemic was to work with one of our partners and do a work from home cybersecurity assessment. That really helped us focus on where our biggest risks were and where we should focus on our energies and making sure that we were protected. Some of the suggestions they had, we did already implement, which was great, like ensuring that our system securities were based on job role, but we did have to make some improvements to our VPN security to make sure that we had the appropriate capacity, multiple layers of authentication. And since then, we've continued to adjust and improve that over time. One of the largest areas of concern, though, was really in the information management space with everybody being at their individual houses, all of that member information was no longer necessarily under lock and key, especially if people had hard copies of information,
Right.
or were moving things, back and forth between the office and their home. So it was critical that we worked with the staff to make sure that they understood their responsibilities in safeguarding that information in their home, disposing of secure information properly, not leaving member or company information insecure in their house, things like that. We did implement a secure FTP site to address any file sharing needs, and having to send files from one place to another. And we do have restrictions around what equipment can be used in conjunction with the company provided equipment, to make sure that we reduce that surface area as much as possible. But we do know it's a moving target. So it is something that we continue to focus on and are always looking for ways to improve that, especially because hybrid work isn't going to go away for us. This is definitely something that will continue to have this flexible workforce going forward.
Great, great. Thank you. You really looked at a lot of the aspects of the remote work, not only just the access from my home or your employee's home into your various systems, but into your vendor systems, the data, the customer member information that maybe, normally is protected by the four walls of your building. You took into consideration that and developed strategies for that. So thank you. So, we hear a lot about ransomware, and it still appears to be a significant cyber threat. So what is First Commonwealth strategy to protect itself from a ransomware attack?
Yeah, ransomware is kind of the hot topic. From an overall strategy standpoint, it's the same three-pronged approach I mentioned before. Although, because ransomware is so prevalent now, we have been spending quite a bit of energy specifically around that type of protection and response. So in addition to our normal vulnerability scans and our threat assessments, we also recently had a ransomware preparedness assessment specific to some of the key risks and vulnerabilities that are often exploited in that space. Right. So we did do that to identify any additional areas we can look at to tighten up and protect ourselves even further. Overall, we're in a decent place because, again, we have multiple layers of security and protections throughout the organization, but nothing is 100% foolproof. There's always, holes. It's just a matter of making sure that the holes don't ever line up, to make it easier for people to kind of get through. Ransomware is also an area that changes really by the minute. So in addition to protecting our perimeter, segregating critical information and assets to make sure that if one asset is compromised, another one cannot be. We continually educate our staff in this space. And then from a technology standpoint, we're also implementing an immutable backup system, which ensures that if, God forbid, we are ever in the situation that we are a victim of ransomware, this backup system helps us recover as quickly as possible, and doesn't put us in that situation of ever having to have the discussion around, should you pay the ransom? What should you do? It allows us to very quickly recover and get all of our systems back online. I'm very lucky that I have a super talented and engaged team specifically in this area, but we have also aligned ourselves with some key partners to really kind of extend our capacity to monitor, detect, and react to anything that does come into our environment. So for us, it's really about being as prepared and as agile as we can possibly be, considering the space changes so much on any given day, and it continues to grow over time. So we as a team continue to educate ourselves, really stay up to date with how this particular world is changing, and make sure that we're ready to respond as quickly as possible.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Karla. That was really a great explanation about what First Commonwealth's doing in the area of ransomware. So thank you. Thank you also for discussing just a few of the aspects of cybersecurity, as you started off with, saying that it is a very comprehensive topic with a lot of facets to it. I think you really hit some really good points to share with everybody. So again, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. Okay. So in closing, thank you for joining Credit Union Digest. If you have additional questions for Karla, please see the link in her bio.